What's up, everybody? This is Ryan here, and I'm just going to be doing a very loosely scripted update on a couple of things. So there's a bit of a sort of a organization to this video. So just to overview, I'll be talking about job hunting, uh, what my channel content is going to look like in the near and medium term future, and then a little bit about Android Worldwide. I'll be hosting that part of that event. So let's jump into job hunting because I realize that some people watching this don't really give an SHIT about me and just want to hear some practical information, and that's perfectly okay. So yeah, let's just dive in. To give an overview of the job hunting process that I went through over the span of something like nine, it depends on kind of what you consider, but basically around this time last year, I was preparing to apply to JetBrains. And then, so I wasn't like actively job hunting at that point. I was just trying to apply to this one particular company, but the job hunting process has been something like 9 months to a year. I'm going to assume you're a little bit familiar with my background. Maybe I'll just summarize it really quickly. I started with Android in 2014. For the first 4-ish years of that until about 2018, I was only able to do Android work or learn Android part-time. I was working full-time jobs outside of software development. And then after around like 2019, I was able to devote a lot more time to becoming a better Android developer, publishing and releasing some applications, improving my software engineering skills like data structures and algorithms stuff, and then also really deep diving into some computer science topics like digital circuits and also operating systems. So I am a self-taught developer. I took one class of programming in college and found that it just wasn't right for me. That's a story for another day. So I just wanted to ground that a little bit because some of you might not know a lot about my background and that might be important to you. So let me just overview the sort of the period. Of course, I applied to JetBrains, had an interview with them. I was basically told to try again when I have more experience, which is something I've heard a fair amount over my years as a software developer. And while I do think that response is fair, I have felt a little bit like I think the role I was applying to in that particular case, I probably would have been suitable for, which was, well, I won't go into too much detail there. But fair enough, didn't get that job. From then until sort of like the end of November, I was just applying to a couple different places, not really super actively job hunting, but a couple places every month. I had several pretty bad interviews and bad coding challenges. One of them that I'll talk about is hilarious. I interviewed with this company just with like their HR person. They sent me a coding challenge, and the coding challenge is I had like 45 minutes or something to code a presenter using RxJava, and they gave me like this template. So the thing about this is I've used RxJava 2 before, so I'm familiar with it, but when I used it, I never used single, which is one of the parts of the API that you can use for just like firing a single one-shot kind of event, let's call it that, or message. So I coded out like the guts of this presenter, and then the last thing I had to do is I had to actually subscribe to this single, and I could not figure out the API to get that to work. It's difficult to kind of describe the details, but I was like trying to use subscribe on or something, and I had set up a disposable blah 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 RxJava crap. Just suffice it to say, I spent about 25 minutes just trying to subscribe to this single because I just wasn't familiar with the API, and I was having trouble finding an example on the interwebs which was suitable to it. So I did really poorly on that one, and I'm going to talk about my failures here, and then later on I'll tell you why you shouldn't really worry too much if you fail really hard. I had another job interview, which I thought I did pretty good on, but they passed me up. Towards the very end of November, I got a message from a Facebook recruiter or Meta recruiter and scheduled a sort of recruiter interview for the early part of December. I did really well in that. I've actually done a Meta recruiter interview prior, and they basically my experience has been they'll give you 6 Android questions, and if you know your core Android stuff, you'll get 6 out of 6, or at least 5 out of 6. So I got all those ones correct, and then it took them like over a month to get back to me about whether I would move to the next stage interview. I heard back on that in sort of like mid-early January, and they did want to give me the next interview, which is like a Android screen, I think they call it. So in this case, you're talking with an Android developer, and they give you 2 code problems to do with DSA type stuff that you have to solve. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in between this period, which I'm not going to go into, but I got stuck in a different country due to COVID and a bunch of crap like that. And I wasn't really able to prepare super well for that second interview, which took place in, I think it was like February 25th. There's a lot of stuff a lot of crap went on in that 2 months. Anyways, when I got to that second interview, I didn't feel super prepared for it, and I thought I was going to bomb it. I actually did really well on it. I had great rapport with my interviewer. I answered both questions fully, basically the code questions. I'm not going to share what they are specifically because I just don't think that's really the right thing to do. But they were 2 data structure DSA questions where if you have a good problem-solving ability and you're familiar with some basic data structures like hash maps and stacks, then you're going to be able to figure it out pretty quickly. So that boosted my confidence. Moving forward, in about 10 days after that or something, they told me that they wanted me to do the virtual on-site interview. I told them I needed a bit of time to prepare. So while this is going on, my girlfriend works as a medical resident. So that's someone who has a medical degree. She is a doctor, but she's doing like her kind of practical training. She has this elective going on, this rotation going on in a different city than the one where I'm here right now. So I go with her, and this thing takes 28 days. So basically I'm preparing for this virtual on-site interview with Meta, which is a whole day of interviews, and it's very intense, in a hotel room on a laptop. So it's not exactly ideal. And that's one of the reasons I wasn't able to make a lot of videos, is I didn't have the stuff that I needed to make good videos. Okay, so I prepare for this virtual on-site interview, and it's a whole day of interviews from like 9 o'clock until, sorry, one second. From like 9 o'clock until, what is it? 3 o'clock or something like that. It's not quite 8 hours, but it's full. And I'm not going to go into too much details because I signed an NDA, but I think the details which I'm allowed to talk about is you're going to get several behavioral interviews, several coding interviews, and then you're going to get a systems design interview. I'm not going to talk about the specific questions I was asked because I think that would be under the NDA. And also, I don't want to disrespect the people I interviewed with by sharing what the specific questions were, even if I didn't sign an NDA. I'm not really fond of that. So to just summarize how that went, so the systems design interview, which I was actually expecting to do well on, did not go my way. I did not have great rapport with my interviewer. Not really going to talk too much about that, but I didn't have good rapport with that person. Do I feel like that was totally my fault? Not really, but at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to deal with different kinds of people, so it is what it is. The question they gave me, so in a systems design interview, you have to like design some feature or some application. The question they gave me was not ideal. Again, not going to say exactly what it was, but it was something where the UI is basically almost non-existent, very close to that. You might have like some settings, but the actual application itself is almost entirely client-side, back-end stuff. So here's the thing. I do know my way around client-side Android system services and so forth, but anyone who's spent a lot of time dealing with it knows there's a lot of APIs. There's a lot of things you have to worry about in terms of like when your application's in the background state or idle state, waking the phone up, downloading things in the background, dealing with like screen off, screen on events and stuff like that. It's not easy stuff. I do feel like I covered pretty much all the bases I needed to cover. Where I screwed up is that I kind of let the interviewer derail me from my process, which is my fault. And then I started getting into the weeds when I should have stuck to this sort of top-down process. The end result is I think I covered a lot of the right bases. I just didn't have a cohesive design at the end, which is fair. So definitely could have done better on that one. The coding challenges really didn't go my way. The first one, the question was fair enough. It was actually very similar to one I had gotten previously. But one thing that really tripped me up is there was one aspect of this question which the interviewer didn't actually specify, and I kind of ended up for about 10 minutes running with the assumption. What I will say is that it was a string problem, and I spent about 10 minutes sort of running with the assumption that I was allowed to rearrange the string, which actually wasn't the case. Now, the question did not explicitly say that. So I did eventually figure that out with the interviewer, but that was frustrating because when you lose 10 minutes in one of these coding interviews, it's not good. So I had to completely throw out my approach, and then I had to then come up with a new approach, which did end up being a good approach, but then this approach I had chosen, which had to do with pointers instead of dealing with some kind of data structure, my Achilles heel as a software developer is like indexes and like, is it size -1? Is it is A less than B, or is it less than or equal to B? These little hyper-specific things that are like almost arithmetic based. I really suck at these things. This has been a common feature since I was a kid in mathematics. I'm quite good at math. I suck at arithmetic. So I ended up getting bogged down. And then the other thing I'll talk about is I deviated from my process again. My process with solving these questions, especially these kinds which are really hyper-specific, is to actually write out pseudocode before I write the implementation. And that's what I had been doing to prep. And that's what works for me. I'm better at designing these algorithms in plain English than I am in code itself. Might not be the case for you. That's how it works for me. So I was about to start writing out the pseudocode, and this is where I screwed up. I do not blame my interviewer for this. But my interviewer said, I think we should probably just go straight to writing the code unless you feel like it would help you write the code. So it's not the interviewer's fault. They did push me to go straight into the code and skip that part of my process, but they also clearly said, unless you have a good reason to. I deviated from my process. I went right into the code, and so for that first interview, I didn't even fully answer the first question, and in these interviews, they give you 2 of them. That one went poorly. The next was a behavioral interview. I think that one went really well, but I don't really, I felt like I had good rapport. I felt like I gave good answers, but you don't really know with these ones. Maybe the person doesn't like you. Maybe you set off some red flags. I don't know. Then I had another coding interview, and this one went better than the other one, but 2 things happened. Again, I deviated from my process. I did answer the first question, and then the second question they gave me was really difficult. I actually took time to answer some of these questions later on just to improve my knowledge. And this question still is like, yeah, there's no way I would have answered that question. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but it was an ugly question. And so the other thing is, like, at this point, my brain is fried. Like, I don't have a lot of brain power left. So I did better on that coding challenge. I answered the first question. I think my data structure was good. It was in linear time, but couldn't answer the second one. Then I did another behavioral interview. I don't know. Again, I don't really know how well that went. I think it went okay, but you don't really know. A couple days later, I hear back, and it's a no, which I pretty much expected. I thought especially because I did poorly on the systems design interview, I think it was probably going to be a no. Okay, so what did I do? I had just spent almost like 3 months, not 3 months straight, but a 3-month period preparing for a Meta interview, and I get a no. What did I do? Well, I got back to job hunting. So let's move forward to what happened more recently. So I got back to Alberta, Calgary, last weekend, which was April 9th or something like that. And I had actually, I had immediately started applying to more jobs. I did an interview while I was still back in Vancouver, and it went really well. I think for 2 reasons. Number one, once you've been through on-site Meta interview or Google interview or something like that, there's not a lot that can surprise you. Secondly, I had really good rapport with my interviewer, and I really appreciated the questions that this interviewer asked me because I've been coding since 2013. I don't have a lot of experience in like a company, so to speak, but I know my way around Android, and I'm pretty good at writing code. And something I get a lot is interviewers will be like, so what is your past experience? And I'll tell them about the apps I've built. And then they'll be like, so you haven't worked in a company, on a team doing Agile Scrum, blah, blah, blah. And I'll have to be like, no, not really, a little bit, but not for an extended period. And I feel like a lot of people seem to really kind of pass me up because I don't have that prior experience. In this interview, I got the feeling that this person cared about, like, how easy was I, to solve a logic problem? What was my process for solving a logic problem? He asked me like 12 or 15 Android questions, which I was able to answer most of them. Like the one I got wrong was I'm not familiar with sticky intents, so that was one case. And I just had a really good feeling about it. I got a follow-up interview a couple days ago, did that, which was just a short one with another individual who wouldn't be like the lead Android developer. And the end of the story is that I have signed an offer with this company. They're a mid-sized startup. I'm very happy with the offer. Like, it's more money than I will have ever made in my life in terms of salary. I like the project. And the person who I interviewed with initially, I have very good rapport with, at least from my end. So I'm looking forward to working with that individual. Okay, so that was a big overview of the whole process, and I've been talking for nearly 20 minutes. So this is going to be one of those videos. If you want to watch it, fine. I just want to go through a couple lessons about this whole process. So the first thing I want to mention is you have to be persistent. You might have to apply to 10, 20, 30, 50 jobs. You might feel like you're somewhat qualified, and hopefully you are, and you're going to run into situations where people are going to not really see what you're good at. You might botch an interview. You might fail a coding challenge. Those are kind of the main things. And it's really important that you don't make a big story about it. You don't have that failure or someone rejecting you and then say to yourself, I suck. I'm not saying you should be like delusional about it, but what I'm saying is, listen, I've known for a couple of years that, hey, I'm not the best Android developer, but I'm pretty good. And I have spent several thousand hours writing code. So I know I don't suck. I know I could be a good employee, a good Android developer. And so, as tempting as it can be to make a big story about it and woe is me and I guess I'm not good enough and I should quit, Well, yeah, the one way to guarantee failure is to give up. So you might have to endure an indeterminate number of failures before you get what you're looking for. In my case, it was years of that. So my suggestion to you is, you know what? Even though I've been through so much stuff and I've gotten so many different rejections over the years, particularly for my lack of experience, even though I feel like I'm a pretty good coder, you know what? I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. Because I now get to say that I walked a path that very few people have walked. I never gave up. And now all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I'm really quite happy. I could have gone back to working in a kitchen and been a decent cook. I could have did that. I thought about that a lot. But at the end of the day, I just never gave up. So that's basically all I have to say about the job hunting thing. And it's basically, yeah, it might take you years. When you have a failure, okay, have a period where you feel bad about it. And then, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and then keep working on your skills. Keep applying to places. Don't basically orient your entire life and self-esteem and future around one single job application, even if it is Meta. Because the truth is, when I got the rejection from Meta, I didn't really care because I've got a great life. It's really not the end of the world. And it kind of worked out for the better in many ways. Okay, so that's everything I want to say about job hunting. The next thing I want to ramble about is for the people who care about the content I make and like the regular viewers, which is channel content. So I'm going to be a full-time Android developer in a startup environment. So there's probably going to be some flexibility over whether it's 40 hours or maybe some more than that. But it is going to be Monday to Friday. And basically, my plan is I want to carry on doing my live stream Q&As as many weekends as I can manage. Life gets in the way sometimes, especially when you have a girlfriend who has a family that's very wants to hang out a lot, which is good. It's certainly not what I grew up with. So anyways, so stuff happens, but I will try to keep doing the live stream Q&As. I will also try to do more videos where I talk about general topics to do with becoming a better developer or programming sort of subdomains, data structures and algorithms, operating systems, digital circuits, computer sciencey stuff that I think would be useful for self-taught developers and just developers in general to maybe learn about. But basically what I'm saying is I'm not really going to be doing a lot of long-form tutorials, courses, and I'm not going to be doing a ton of like Android tutorials. And the reason why is I just don't have time. The good thing about this is that I'm going to be doing Android full-time, which is actually kind of a new thing because most of my entire history as a programmer, I've spent 30 to 60% of my time teaching people. So the good news is that my skills are definitely going to level up. So I'll be better able to help people through the live stream Q&A. And I'm actually looking forward to it in a lot of ways. The final thing is that over a longer period of time, really realistically, the only content I can kind of do with this limited amount of time is live content because I don't have to edit it, or I can edit it very quickly. So I do actually plan longer term on making some videos where I'm basically giving like lectures like you would get in a university or something like that are live. So if you're curious about that, stay tuned. I would actually eventually like to build out my entire sort of curriculum, but that's going to take a very long time. And first I've got to settle into my current job. Last thing I wanted to talk about is with Android Worldwide. So Android Worldwide is a conference / meetup. Not really sure what to call it. Neither are the organizers. But basically it's it seems to happen about 4 times a year where a bunch of Android developers get together. There's a bunch of talks. There's like roundtable discussions. And I've said this repeatedly, but I really enjoy it because to me it feels like the best parts of the Android community coming together, which is really great without all the negativity, because obviously there's a couple people in our community who are just, I don't know, how can I say this, volcanoes of negativity. And yeah, sometimes they have valid criticisms, but if all you have to say is negative stuff, then after a point it's like, okay, I don't really want to listen to you anyways. But very different with Android Worldwide. I've very much enjoyed it. So consider joining. This upcoming event will be on April 19th, and it pretty much lasts all day. So no matter where you are in the world, you should be able to join at some point for it. And although I wasn't able to come up with a talk because I was dealing with the Meta job preparation, I did actually, I had said to the organizer, one of the organizers, Shalom, that I'd be happy to try my hand at doing some hosting. And so they gave me the opportunity to do that. So probably for a lot of people watching this, especially if you're in India, you'll be in bedtime by the time I do my hosting. But I will be hosting for 2 talks sort of at the tail end of the conference. And I'm actually pretty excited about it for several reasons. Number one is I like the 2 talks that I'll be hosting for. They're relevant and interesting things for me. And then also it's just a really great opportunity to just practice my own skills as like a host and a presenter. And like I say, I just really like the people that run the event, and I really like the people who join the event and speak at the event. So if you have that Tuesday off, it's a Tuesday, consider joining up for that. It's really great. I'll be hanging out in the chat rooms as much as possible. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say. So that was a pretty long video, but hey, it is what it is. Stay tuned for more content, more live streams, and I will give you more updates as things on my new job, which I start actually on April 20th, progresses. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later, cousins.